why won't you just help me? That's a question I've gotten from students as I'm literally sitting next to the student, assisting them. The trick is, for a lot of students, to them, help means tell me the answer. When, as the teacher, help means help you learn to think critically, help you develop skills. Today, we're going to talk about why students have that mindset, where that sense of frustration comes from, and how to manage it with your students. A lot of times, the thing that would trigger this moment for a lot of students, like their first big crash out in my class, would be when they encountered a very specific question with cell energy. What gases do plants produce at night? And this is a question that if you teach biology, if you've been teaching it for a while, probably doesn't seem that complex. But for students, it feels tricky because, when you taught it, they probably weren't paying that great of attention because they were like, oh, I learned photosynthesis in middle school. I learned that in middle and elementary school. I don't have to pay attention to this lady that's talking. I already know this. So then when they get to that question, feels like you're asking for a lot because their gut answer of, oh, oxygen. When it's marked wrong, they're like, but what do you mean? These moments are when the realness of SEL happens. A lot of people think that SEL isn't needed in science, and I vehemently disagree. But I also think a reason people feel like that, a major misconception they have, is that SEL is just wiping snot and putting pretty slides up and playing four corners. And those things are great and beautiful and lovely, and they are not the whole of SEL, because if you're doing SEL well in your science classroom, sometimes you're going to have students that absolutely detest your guts. And I am saying this from personal experience, particularly at the beginning of the school year. And often by the end of the year, those kids will love you. But at the beginning of the year, when you are holding them to a standard and teaching them how to navigate not knowing what to do, how to make a mistake, it sucks. And it sucks for your students and for you often. But these are the moments where your belief in your ability as a teacher is put on full display. If your belief on whether or not a student can be successful in your classroom, full display. These are the moments that make or break student independence in your classroom. So going back to the story from the beginning, this is a scene that played out countless times. Me sitting next to a kid, them accusing me of not helping them accusing me of wanting to watch them fail, and them just being so freaking frustrated. They go, oh, you do too much. My teacher down the hallway doesn't ask me to do all of this. Why do you want all of this from me? You know I can't do it. And sometimes these are kids you would expect. Sometimes it's the kid who, you got a call about, you got a text about before they ever hit your door. Their other teachers are already talking about them and it's day one. Sometimes it is that kid, but sometimes it's a kid who has made all A's and your class is the first time they've ever struggled and they do not know how to manage that. Sometimes the kid who's kind of coasted, but they've done that because they've managed to just be in classes where the expectation was they just copy things down and they were never actually made to think. And that is very common for our high schoolers who were experiencing parts of late elementary, parts of middle school during when kids were out for COVID. Because when kids came back, a lot of us panicked. A lot of teachers over scaffolded. And there's no shade. I did it too. The result is kids who have been taught that they don't have to do the thinking. And when you hold them to the expectation that they are required to think in your classroom, it sucks for them because they're being asked to do something new. However they express this feeling of frustration, sometimes with a head down and they're doing an impression of a rock. Sometimes it's loud outbursts and yelling. Sometimes it is frustrated tears welling in their eyes. I've seen all of these multiple times. All of those behaviors come down to the same root cause, a sense of helplessness, a sense of I can't do this, a sense of she is asking me to do beyond what I am capable of. And she knows that, and she is just being mean to me. A sense of I'm going to fail in this class because this person is expecting me to go beyond what I am capable of. But on the other side of these reactions, on the other side of these moments, that's where student confidence is really, truly built. I talk a lot about building student confidence and different strategies you can use at the beginning of the year. And those matter. Do not get me wrong. But it is how you react in these moments that will communicate to students, yes, you are capable, or you need to rely on me for the whole year. So if you do not want to have to hold students' hands all year long, if you do not want for students to be coming up to you after every single question trying to confirm if it's right, if that's not how you want to spend your year, if you want to spend your year with students being independent, with students, when they come to ask you a question, them bringing their notes with them because they already have an idea and they just want to double check a couple of things. If you want students to value each other's opinions and for you not to just be the central fountain of knowledge, then how you handle these situations is so, so important. So what do? When a student is sitting in front of you, tears welling up in frustration, they all but yelled at you, and you can like see their thinly held grip on their sanity just like slipping away. The first thing is we're going to go, okay, I can see that we're a little overwhelmed. We're a little frustrated. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to set a timer for about 2-3 minutes. And at the end of that timer, I'm going to come back and we're going to try again. During that timer, I want you to breathe. And if you, depending on the kid and how they're reacting and the feedback you're getting, you can run through some box breathing with them. We're going to inhale for 4. We're going to hold it for 4. We're going to exhale for 4. We're going to hold for 4. We're going to have them do some doodling. The very first thing we want to do is help cool down. Will they still be angry and frustrated after that time is over? Probably. But their brain will have had some time to be a little less stimulated because the outbursts, the giving up, the head down, that's coming from overstimulation. It's coming from maybe their working memory has been stretched to capacity. And a lot of times you'll see these types of reactions happening with your classes you have later in the day. Because what we know from the science of how brains learn is that our brains keep working on something even when we're not actively thinking about it. Okay? So if your student has you for biology 6th period, and 4th period they had algebra, and 5th period they had English, and they were doing really intensive things in there, the amount of mental energy they have left for you is just not a lot. So they reach that sense of overwhelm. Embedding in that break is going to help bring them back to like a more calm state where they're actually able to listen and learn. If it's a student who you can see is just like needs some physical motion, if there isn't the space or place to do that in your classroom, I will write kids a pass to the bathroom and be like, hey, you got 2 minutes on the clock. I need you to be back by then, but take a lap. Because if they're still in that heightened emotion, they are not going to receive anything you have to say. And let them do that. Go check in on other students. Do not watch them the whole time. Do not talk at them the whole time. Give them that 2 or 3 minutes for them to get themselves together because they're probably embarrassed. They're overwhelmed and they need those moments. We've given them this break. We're coming back and now we're like, okay, so what was the question? Have them say the question out loud. Sometimes that alone is going to trigger something for kids. Have them say the question. Then if they're still, a little shaky, okay, what notes are going to help us with this question? What unit is this from? And if they can't answer either of those questions, what unit are we on? If they don't know the answer to that, have them ask a friend. Our goal here is to not be the fountain of information. It's their job to use the tools that they have to find it, and we're just there to support them. So we've asked them to figure that out. They either asked a friend or knew, and you have these notes out. Okay, let's look through the notes. What's the question asking about? Okay, it's asking about gases, gas exchange. What processes are in our notes that talk about gases? Photosynthesis, respiration. Okay, great. What gases are produced in those processes? Which of those processes do plants do? Do they do both of them? Do they only do one of them? Do they do both at night or only one at night? What's the answer? You figured that out by yourself. Did I help you guide your thinking? Yes. But did I give you any information? No. You could have done this without me. You just didn't know it yet. You didn't need me. You had everything in you all along to be able to do this successfully. And is the kid going to jump for joy and be excited after? Probably not. They're probably still going to be pissed at you, probably still aggravated. And in a lot of times where I've done this, are angrily turning in the assignment. So upset with me. But the next time it happened, they pull their notes out before I even say anything. And if they hear a classmate say, oh, I don't know, whatever, you'll hear them cue their classmate. Have you looked in your notes? This is how I would always, by February, I was notorious for if you walk in Henley's room and by February, she's doing puzzles. She has a puzzle out for her that she's working on. Because at that point in the year, my students knew they were capable. I was the sidekick. And that is how it should be in a classroom. Teachers are not the star of the show. Teachers should be the sidekick. And so I'm just there to provide a little bit of extra support, to have my little bag of tricks that I can hand to them that they can use, ask some strategic questions, but they are doing the thinking. And the story that I think is most emblematic of like how this works and how effective this is. I had a student who was like a solid C student in August and early September. Student had done pretty well in middle school, was content with their little 70s on the first test. Then the friend of this student, who had always done worse than this student when they were in middle school, made I think 90 something on the second test. Student went, how you do that? What's going on here? And the friend went, I just did what Dr. Henley told me to do. I did my work myself. I didn't copy. And you know how she told us to just like try studying 5 minutes a night? I did that. So this student is like, oh, okay, bet. And that's what happens. You get 1 or 2, 3 or 4 students on board, and it spreads because they see somebody being successful. And before, when everybody was just failing, because like at the beginning of that school year, that class's average was like 40s and 50s on the first couple of exams. But when they see their classmates starting to come up, they're like, wait, maybe this lady knows what she's talking about. This was cute when everybody was doing bad. But now that I know that folks can do this, I want to do it too. So friend is coming up. This child starts doing a few things. Grade is going up. It's looking decent. This child encounters this exact question I mentioned earlier, and Flabbers were gasted, was in shambles over this question, frustrated, yelling at me. And I went through the exact process I laid out here, angrily turns it in. The child didn't make less than an A on a test the rest of the year. I don't think missed more than 2 or 3 questions the rest of the year. Every single time this child came to ask me a question, it was with notes in hand and having already thought through the problem. Being able to say, this is what I think the answer is, and this is why I'm not sure. Instead of just like, is this right? This is a child who told me at the beginning of the year, I hate science. You might be cool. I don't know yet, but I do not like science, and I'm not going to like your class. Stood by that, stood 10 toes down on that all year long. Still, I don't like science. And yet, this child's favorite class was English. About a month before school got out, English teacher came to me to talk to me about this kid because I had spoken with the English teacher about this kid before, just like how inquiring after the child, because I knew the child really liked English and had some goals that were related to English. So I would check in every now and then. And so the English teacher came to find me and was like, do you know this child asked me if what they had done on an assignment would get at least a 70? And I said yes, and they just turned it in incomplete. And I was like, wow, that's bananas. And it really felt bananas because like I never had that experience with this student. A month later, we were getting our end of the year project. And the end of the year project that I did, it's inside of the Patreon. I've talked about it on a number of videos. In this project, students pick a topic of their choice and really create anything of their choice around that topic. This child went above and beyond for this project. During testing, when this child could have been in a class that I know from conversation was a subject this child enjoyed, a class this child liked being in. During those extended testing blocks where they weren't really doing anything, would get a pass to come to my classroom and work on the project. And it wasn't like the child had friends in my room. In fact, one of them was very nervous to come in because the child didn't know anybody. Other times during my planning period, so there's literally nobody but this child and a friend the child had dragged with them to assist on coloring some things. Why is the child going so hard for a project in a subject that the child is adamant they don't like? Because of the confidence, because the I know I can do well, because I know I can be successful in here, because I know my teacher believes in me. That is on the other side of that work. And is it work? Yes. Are you going to have to be up and around the room and checking in at the beginning of the school year? Yes. Are you going to have to make sure students understand that opting out of trying in your classroom is not an option? Yes. But you work real hard August, September, October, and the rest of the school year, your students start to manage things themselves. And it ain't even really all of October. The classroom culture being we work in here, we try in here, we're not afraid to make mistakes in here, we learn in here, becomes so prevalent that even if you have a new student come into class later on in the year, you do not have to set the expectation because your other students will do it for you. That's what's on the other side of all this SEL stuff. Again, it's not just wiping snot and giving hugs. It's not just games and silliness. It's the work of helping students believe in themselves, showing them that you see them as a human and providing them space to experience those human emotions and learn to regulate them so that they do hard things. At the end of the day, this isn't just about whether or not they like a subject, whether they like your class, whether they like your school or not. It's about how confident they feel in a space, how supported they feel in a space. And that doesn't happen if you are the central point of knowledge in your classroom. It doesn't happen if students believe that they can't be successful without you. You should be their sidekick. You should provide them notes. You should provide those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, once they have the tools, we should be empowering them to use the tools themselves. Engagement increases, performance increases, and your quality of life at work increases as well. Because suddenly, when students are independent, when they are conferring with each other, when they are conferring with your notes, you have 10 minutes during class to get something done you need to get done real quick. You're not as exhausted when you go home. You're not as frustrated from begging kids to please just pick up a pencil all school year long. I'll be talking more about this on August 30th at the No More Captain Save a Student Masterclass. I'll be talking about things that sometimes teachers do from a good place, a place of care, that can actually prevent students from believing in themselves and having the confidence to try on their own, things that prevent students from developing that independence you want them to have in your classroom, ways that teachers sometimes accidentally teach students to depend on the teacher instead of themselves, and what to do about it and what to do instead. So if that is something you're interested in, make sure you are in the place. I'll have some more information about that in the description or the notes or whatever that accompanies this. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you'd like to hear more like this. And stay curious, y'all.